I can hear my kids giggling in the background. That's why I'm laughing. Hello, everybody. So it is Friday afternoon, and we're almost ready to kick off the weekend here in Pittsburgh. It's been hot. It's been hot. I haven't been outside much. I don't go outside a whole lot when it's hot like this. It's not my kind of weather. So I'm probably going to be staying in the shade, maybe hitting the pool a couple times. But I wanted to hop on here before you go into your weekend because I know a lot of people like to write on the weekends. So this is the perfect time to talk about perfection. I've actually had a couple people reach out to me this week and say, hey, you know, I can't get through this. What is going on? I never seem to get through it. I never seem to hit publish. I've been dealing with this for years. Can you talk to me about this? So I wanted to do a video about writing and perfection because it is keeping people everywhere from finishing their book and getting their story out, right? Most of the people that I talk to are very driven people. They're high achievers. They want to share their voice. They know that second place isn't okay. They don't want to keep quiet and, keep everything to themselves. But there's still that little barrier that's keeping them from actually publishing the book. Sure, maybe they've started writing, maybe they've been writing it for years and years and years, but they aren't getting their story out there. These people have a lot to say, but it's not happening, right? So the funny thing is this type of person, the high achievers, the doers, the movers, I hate the phrase movers and shakers, but that's what's popping up right now. Those people who want to reach more people, a lot of those people are the same ones that suffer from a need for perfection. They are, recovering from this, trying to get over this perfection bug that they've got. Perfection plagues a lot of us, and it's a pretty common thing. But even when we think that we've gotten over it, it can still come up when we're doing things that we aren't used to doing, like writing a book. So if you're working on your first book, you may have to combat this issue with perfection all over again. Whenever we're doing something new, we tend to retreat back into that safety zone. Okay, what is our safety zone? It's all the stuff we've been doing all these years to help us feel safe, right? So whether that's, munching on Cheetos, or it's avoiding what you need to really address, or whatever it is, there's that perfection thing going on. You need to be perfect. Um, you know, Perfection, high levels of achievement, that's what we're used to. But we're not always used to writing a book or telling our story. So sometimes we trip back into that perfection zone. Some of the things that show up, if you haven't been working on your story or your writing for very long, you might not recognize that, you know, drive for perfection right away. So if you catch yourself doing some of these things, this could be a sign that you are trying to be perfect with your writing. So if you start writing and then you end up going back and just picking endlessly, maybe you complete a chapter and you're like, hey, I'm moving along, doing great. And then you say, you know what, I'm going to go back and reread that chapter. I think the third paragraph needs tweaked a little bit. I'm going to read it aloud. I'm going to sit with this for a while. I'm going to come back to it next week when I feel like I've had a little space, and I'm going to, work on it some more. Something like that sounds mild. Something like that might even make sense to you. But it's when we keep that action up, we never make any forward progress. That's what I always call picking at your manuscript. You just pick, 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 pick. Oh, I found a better word for that. I'm going to go dig around online. Maybe I need a better explanation of this. What's really going to work? You have to figure out where the line is between creating the best piece that you possibly can and really digging and hunting for perfection. Because perfection is not going to happen, right? Some of the other things that could show up, maybe you're delaying on any part of this process. You're delaying getting to the end of the book. You feel like the whole thing has to be perfect and you just can't move forward. You're putting off sending it to your editor. maybe you're putting off, maybe you've completed the whole book, but you're just not ready. And you're putting off getting your ISBN. Maybe you're putting off some part of the process. You're putting off telling people that you've written because you just don't think it's ready. Some of this stuff could just be that you feel like the manuscript needs to be perfect. And that is going to keep you from publishing. A couple other things, looking at my notes here, a couple other things that I love, especially from people who are like big word people. Like, I love words. There are a lot of word people out there. So this one's for you guys, fawning over certain words or phrases. So if you're sitting there and you're like, no, I need to find another word. I need to find another phrase. There's something that means this slightly differently from what I'm looking for. Mark it and go on, and maybe it'll come to you later, or you can search for it later. But if you're going to stop your writing flow in the middle of what you're doing and go dig around online and read 20 books and call your best friend and all that stuff just to find the perfect word, you are delaying yourself. You are caught in perfection. I love words, I was going to say just as much as the next guy, but maybe not everybody loves words. I love words. I love new words. I love big words. I love what I always call heavy words, words with weight, words that have meaning, words that you don't hear every day. I love words. But if that's what your goal is with your book, then you need to look at your goal again, because your goal should be to connect with your audience, not to find the most perfect synonym for balderdash. That's not going to serve anybody. You are not serving when you are digging around online hunting for a new word. Fun as that can be. Save that for a pastime. Save that as a hobby. If you are doing all of these things, you are delaying getting your book out there. You are caught in this perfection cycle, and it's keeping you from publishing. It's keeping you from getting your story out. And that is the piece you need to build a relationship with your audience. You're not building a relationship if your book is sitting on your hard drive. Write that down. So those are just some of the ways that this shows up. So I wanted to talk about how this has shown up for me in the past. If you haven't talked to me, been in my world for very long, just so you know, I have written 8 books. I've self-published 8 books, and I haven't done it alone. I have worked with a coach. I have worked with editors. I have worked with marketers. I have worked with all kinds of people to help get those books out to the world. And the biggest thing for me was that I figured out how to write books myself. That's where I came up with all my processes. But as I was doing this, I was a professional writer, and I'm thinking, okay, I got this. I'm not a perfectionist. I'm not going to have a problem with this. But I started seeing these things showing up, this need for perfection. And of course, when I was writing my novels, I wasn't thinking of it that way. I was thinking of it as, perfection should be the goal. Of course, we want it to be perfect. Everything should be perfect. If you want to know more about that, read Confessions of the Editor Brigand, because that is really some great undertones in that. The new version will be coming out later this year, hopefully. But, as I was working on these books, that's the kind of stuff that was coming up. I was thinking, all right, I need it to be perfect. I want it to be perfect. But really what I was doing, the physical action of that, was I was over editing my own work. So I would read an entire book, or I would write an entire book and go back and reread the whole thing over and over and over and pick at a word and go in and do some research. And maybe I need to try this. And what if I did that? What would be really great? I should add a chapter. No, I'm not going to add a chapter now that I've written half of that chapter. What if I do it this way? And it just keeps spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning, and it never finishes. I was especially bad on this with my first book. Now, that book needed work, but deep down it was really a confidence thing. It was a need to be perfect, and it did not work out well for me. That's how it was showing up in my life. I was doing all of this over editing. When I finally was letting other people read that work, this is the other end of it, I was getting mad. I did not have a good attitude about being edited. I was scared that someone would spot imperfections. And when they did, I got mad at them for doing it. Now, this happened at work too. I was a professional writer, and when I worked with, another one of the writers on my team, if they would spot stuff, I would be like, oh, I can't believe that they said that was wrong. They didn't say that was wrong. And coming at this from where I am today, you and your editor have the same goal. You and your beta reader have the same goal. You and your best friend or your aunt or whoever it is that's reading your book, you have the same goal. You both want the book to be the best that you can put out. They aren't coming at it like, I'm going to correct her. I'm going to show her how dumb she is. No, that's not how it works. You have the same goal, right? And you have to look at it that way. And the goal is not perfection. The goal is to get that book out the best way you can. So if you ever feel like you get really, angry about people correcting you, about people editing your work, about the red lines that you are having, PTSD from your high school days when you would get your paper back and it had all the red lines and fix this word and do this. If you feel that way, then you have to step back and start thinking of it as us having the same goal, to get to the same space. Everybody working on this book wants to get that book out, right? They want you to succeed. They want you to get it out because this is such an amazing thing. These were some of the things that were going on in my head, and I don't get to talk to people about this often enough because we don't talk about this perfection issue when you're talking about writing and editing very often. So I'm happy to be able to talk about this today. It even was at a point where sometimes somebody would say, oh, hey, I spotted this. I think this needs to be fixed. I would jump in and say, oh, this is what I meant here. Not, thank you for that edit. I need to go in and rework this section because clearly it didn't go across the way I wanted to. It was, oh no, you didn't understand that. You didn't get what I was trying to say. That was a huge, huge hurdle for me to overcome because I wanted to be perfect. And what that perfection really was my fear of being wrong, my fear of being seen as imperfect or as a failure or as an imposter. I'm out here masquerading as an author. What if somebody sees through that persona? What if they see through my mask and they realize I'm not perfect? And it all goes back to your perspective on this, right? Because if somebody else is coming at me and saying, you know what, she's a failure, she's an imposter, she's not perfect, that's how they are perceiving me. And that's really not something that I want to project, right? That's not something that I am saying, hey, I'm over here flinging this out, just doing it however I want. And I have to understand if they are seeing me as imperfect, that's just how they see things. They're probably somebody who's looking for a place to pick. They're looking for imperfections. They're looking for, a crack or a hole or, they're waiting for the fall. And that's not somebody I want in my world anyway. That's not somebody I want reading my books. So that's not an opinion that I'm going to be looking at if they're picking. Addressing something like an edit or whatever out of love, absolutely. Absolutely. I have had people message me and say, hey, I read your post on Facebook and do you know you spelled something wrong? And I'm like, oh my God, thank you. Thank you so much. Everybody needs an editor, right? I know I'm not perfect. And today I'm okay with that. 20 years ago, 10 years ago, not so much. I wanted to be perfect. And I did not understand at that point that my goal should not be perfection. My goal should be to do the best that I possibly could, to do everything with love and to put out my writing as a gift to the world and to accept other people's commentary on it as a gift to me as well. Oh, my kids are here. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about how we can fix this problem.
Mommy.
Hi, Talia.
London beat me up.
This is real life. Talia, you're live on my video right now. Can I talk in a minute? I want to wrap up my video, okay?
No, Mommy.
All right.
London beat me up.
Okay, I will talk to you guys in a minute. You're welcome to stay if you like.
Mommy, now can we take a feet soak, please?
It's the weekend and my kids want to soak their feet. So let's talk for a couple minutes about how we can address the problem of, thank you, of needing to be perfect. Needing to be perfect when you're working on your book. So I have just a few suggestions that I wanted to put out to you guys. So the first one is when you start writing your book, set a schedule. Make sure that you have some sort of structure for it, because if you have some structure, you know, decide what you're willing to do. Don't let yourself sit there and just pick at your writing. Decide that you're gonna, you know, write a chapter and, you know, keep moving through it. And then when you're done, maybe you're gonna edit it twice, clear through. And give yourself a set amount of time for that. It's not, I'm going to edit this book over the next 5 years, because by the time you've finished that, hopefully you've been growing this whole time, right? And you're going to be looking at it from a different perspective. And that book is still not going to get out because you're going to say, oh no, this isn't what I want to say today. This is what I wanted to say 3 years ago. So it's not going to work for you then. So set a schedule for yourself. Make sure that you know what's going to happen when. Turn know when you're going to turn the book over to a professional, because there has to be an endpoint for you. And remember that your editor is your ally. They want you to succeed. They want to jump in and help you. They are giving you edits out of love. All right, that's the first way that you can do this. The second way, write until the story's over. I always tell people to write until the story's over, because sometimes we feel like, oh, well, maybe I should add a chapter on this. Or what about this other step that could be 10 years down the road? What if they get that far in my book and then they need that step? I don't want to leave them hanging. And sometimes this stuff does come out of love, and other times it comes out of perfection. You know, we want to give, we want to serve, we want to make sure that our audience has everything that we need. But you have to address what your reader needs in that container. That book is a container, right? So if you are, you know, let's say it's your daily intake of water. Let's say you need to have 60 ounces of water every day. You're not going to say, oh my goodness, but I'm going to need another 60 ounces tomorrow and the day after and the day after and the day after, and then just fill up your bathtub, right? If you want to have that amount of water, you're going to buy those water bottles and have them set aside. Or you're going to know, like with my water bottle, I fill this up 3 times. And that's how I know I've had the right amount of water each day. I don't overdo it and over provide, because I know I can go back and get more. And it's the same with this. You write until the story's over for that book, and then you can write another book. Maybe, you know, step 10 is the big picture. Maybe, you know, if you're addressing somebody who's a new business owner, they only need the stuff in that first book. When you, you know, when you have new stuff to say 5 years down the road, you can always write another book. My daughter's videoing me on my phone as well. It's fun working from home. Hi, Talia. So the next one, I only have a couple more, then I'm going to hop off and go do things with the little monkeys. Learn how to trust yourself. Really, you have to learn how to trust yourself. I know it can be tough when you're doing something new, like sharing your story. I know it's tough when you aren't used to writing, but you have to learn how to trust yourself and trust your words, because if you don't, if you don't trust yourself and your words, you're going to be circling around and circling around and circling around and never getting it out. You know, you have to understand how you feel when you're speaking your truth, right? There's a certain way that you feel. Like when I'm on a video like this, I don't have every single word scripted out. I have a few notes, and I know the things that I want to say, because I am giving my kid a phone to keep her quiet for a couple minutes. There you go. I know the things that I want to say when I get on here because that's my truth. Because I've lived this story. I've lived working with clients who are writing books. I've lived writing my own books. So I know this stuff. So I just make a few notes, right? Well, when you're writing, it's the same sort of thing. It's stuff that you know. You're writing what you know. If you're doing a book for your business, you're telling your story, it's yours. It's yours, it's yours, it's yours. It's not, let me go research what other people's stories are and compile all of their stories and then not share anything about myself. You know, you can absolutely bring in some research, but the bulk of it should be what you know. You're sharing what you know because you're sharing yourself. And you know, if you know, sometimes I use language that isn't for everybody, but
Hello.
you know, you have to understand the difference. This is my other daughter, London. You have to know the difference between your ego talking and your higher self. And the ego talking is the one that wants you to get into perfection, not right now. The ego wants you to get into perfection. The higher self just wants you to share with love. Um, so another way of putting that would be, I mean, obviously the ego, um, or you know, your intuition, your gut feeling. Who is it that you really are? The stuff that feels good when you're talking about it. I know in the past I've had kind of a disconnect with that myself sometimes. Sometimes I would be writing something or saying something, and I'm like, I think this is the right word. I think this is the word I mean. And I would just say it, and I'm like, I don't know about that. I don't know if that was right. And then I look it up, and sure enough, it was right. And I didn't trust my gut on it. I knew it was right. I knew it because I just knew it. Sometimes you just know things. And, you know, finally, you can always write that other book. You know, I mentioned that before because I jumped ahead in my notes because I work from home, so I have little ones floating into the office sometimes. But you can always write that other book. Don't feel like this one has to be perfect and cover every single aspect of every single thing that you've ever wanted to talk about. You can always do more. You know, there's always another book in you. Once you have that first one out, trust me, the next one comes so much easier. Um, you know, it's just like anything you've done before, anything. If you've done it once and you feel like you've got a pretty solid feel for it, the second time, it's a breeze. So I didn't get any comments today, but if you have comments on the replay, if you have questions, if you want to wave and go, yeah, writing perfection, I'm having a little bit of a struggle with that. If that sounds familiar, you know, drop your stuff in the comments because I'd love to talk with you about it. Otherwise, have a great weekend. I'm gonna go do something with my kids because I've caught them like a couple years ago. I caught them actually with the sink hose in the kitchen, spraying it around. They were dancing around in their underwear in the kitchen, spraying the hose everywhere, just having a blast. And I don't want that to happen again. So I'm gonna hop off, and I will talk to you next week.